There are just some people in life you'll never get along with. That's a lesson I've learned. Sorry for starting off on such a strange note. My name is Nellie. I'd be glad if you could lead an ear to my story for a bit. I'm married to a man named Greg. Greg's swarmed with work and is often away in the Boston area for his job. While waiting for him to come back, I live in the house we bought together. But recently, my mother-in-law Shannon has been showing up a lot. "You could never deserve this house," she always says. You see, we live pretty close to Shannon's place. We settled here because she insisted we live near her family home. Sure enough, she started visiting frequently once we moved in. "Listen, Veronica, my other daughter-in-law, just got married and wants the house. Since you're the only one here, why not give up this place?" She said something outrageous. This is the house that Greg and I bought together. How could she ask me to give it up? "But Greg is always away, right? So what's the problem?" That's not a valid reason at all. If I give up this house, Greg won't have a home to return to. I had been firmly refusing Shannon's absurd request. Then one day, she came over with Veronica. "Oh wow, this is such a nice place. Perfect for my new home." Veronica examined the house as if she owned it. Being scrutinized like that was unnerving, to say the least. "I love this house. Hand it over now." Veronica joined in with her outrageous demands. Of course, I refused. "You dare defy me, you insolent woman!" And then Veronica got violent. "What are you doing?" Even as I said that, she didn't stop. I curled up to protect myself, enduring her attacks. Shannon was standing there, laughing. "Well, if you're going to cower like that, you shouldn't have defied me in the first place." It seemed like she didn't like the fact that I refused, but she didn't have to be this violent. They left for the day, but they said they'd be back to try and take the house again. I was scared they'd actually take the house from me. I contacted Greg, who was still away for work. When I told him what happened, he said Shannon and Veronica had reached out to him too. Apparently, Shannon has always favored Veronica over him and used to discriminate between them when they were kids. This time too, Veronica told Greg that she wanted a house and asked him to give it to her. Greg sounded really down. I tried my best to cheer him up. We couldn't talk much because he had work left. And then, the next day, Shannon and Veronica returned. "We're getting you to hand over the house today." This time, Shannon entered the house wielding an umbrella. It wasn't raining, so why an umbrella? Then suddenly she swung it at me, clearly threatening that if I didn't give up the house, she'd beat me with it. "All right, say you'll give us the house. Veronica will be the new owner." Veronica also had an umbrella and swung it towards me, along with Shannon. I've been hit by Veronica before, so I was genuinely scared she might actually hit me and raised my arms to protect myself. Both were swinging their umbrella so hard that the whooshing sound filled the air, causing me to flinch and cover my head with my arms. The scene was so terrifying, I couldn't move for a few minutes. "Stubborn, aren't you? Even after all this, you still won't give up the house," Shannon said, sounding exasperated, but I was too scared to even speak. Their attitudes were as if they'd done nothing wrong. It was infuriating. Eventually, Shannon and Veronica left for the day. But as they left, they threatened that the next time they really might hit me. Thinking that my life could actually be in danger, I was filled with dread. I immediately called Greg and told him about today's events. Greg was concerned for my well-being and suggested that we think seriously about our next steps. And then he made a proposal to change the situation, feeling there was no other choice. I agreed to go along with Greg's plan. During the operation, I made sure to not be home when Shannon and Veronica would come. This way, the plan went forward without them catching on. 2 months after initiating the plan, I got a call from Shannon. "I'm tired of waiting to see you. I've decided to move Veronica in whether you like it or not, and I'll throw your stuff out myself." Shannon was laughing as if she had won. Apparently, Veronica was already on her way to the house, but they knew nothing about the plan. I'm sure Veronica would be in for a surprise. While talking to Shannon, a call from Veronica came in. Putting Shannon on hold, I answered Veronica's call and heard, "Who are you?"
"I'm the homeowner. Who are you?"
"This is my house," a male voice responded. Realizing the call had connected, Veronica started speaking to me.
"Nellie, what's going on? Why is there some stranger in the house instead of you?"
Veronica sounded confused. I decided to explain the situation to her. "Veronica, actually we sold the house. Greg and I decided it was the best move." Hearing this, Veronica let out a loud,
"What?"
I wish she wouldn't yell. It's a disturbance to the new homeowner.
"Why would you do that? I never heard about this."
"Well, if we had told you, you would have stopped us, right?" I didn't say anything, so it was a strategy. Greg was also quite upset with Shannon and Veronica's actions. Most of what Greg owned had been taken by Veronica, and now they were trying to take the house too. This was the final straw. Fortunately, we had received some financial support from my family when purchasing the house, so we had little to no mortgage left and could sell it outright.
"This isn't funny. I really like this house. What am I supposed to do now?"
Veronica was furious. Apparently, they'd already planned to live here, and she had even terminated the lease on the apartment she and her husband Ricky were living in. Now, they can't live in this house, and Veronica's faces homelessness. "Why not go back to your parents' house?" I asked, genuinely puzzled, and Veronica became enraged.
"Ricky absolutely refuses to live with them."
Shannon must really have it in for Ricky, judging by what's been said. Well, if someone is that obnoxious, it's no wonder they're disliked. Veronica wouldn't stop complaining about how she absolutely needs that house. But the house is already sold and the new owners have moved in. What does she expect us to do? Over the phone, I could hear a man's angry voice. Apparently, there's a bunch of stuff sprawled out near the entrance, and he's not too happy about it. At this point, I wouldn't blame him if he called the cops.
"Hey, do something about this. You're the one who sold them the house, right?"
Veronica, not wanting to be yelled at, tried to make me and the man talk over the phone. "Yes, I did sell them the house, but that doesn't mean we have anything to discuss. Even if we did, the contract has been finalized, so all I can say is, I'm sorry for any inconvenience my acquaintance has caused." I decide to decline Veronica's request. Then, Veronica starts yelling again. Causing a ruckus in front of the house is bothering not just the man, but all the neighbors too. Talking to Veronica is pointless. She just doesn't get it. I thought this was going nowhere and hung up on Veronica. Immediately, another call comes in. It's from Shannon, whom I had put on hold. "What on earth are you doing? Veronica is furious. Fix this!" I'm just dumbfounded by her blame shifting. Shannon is the one who tried to let Veronica move into our house without permission. But she acts like I'm the villain. If it weren't for these two making a scene, I would have continued to live in that house. "Where are you now? Just fix it!" Oh, I hadn't told her yet. I'm at Greg's new posting. What? I decided to move with Greg to his new location. Greg frequently gets transferred because of his work, and we thought it would be better to not settle down in one place. Luckily, we don't have kids, so we have the freedom to change our residence. But that didn't satisfy Shannon. "Come back right now! I need to give both of you a piece of my mind!" Shannon sounded furious, but I'm the one who wants to be mad. If it weren't for Shannon's meddling, we wouldn't have had to give up the house. "Enough, Shannon. How much more inconvenience do you plan on causing people?" I figured it's safe to vent, given that I've moved and we're over the phone. "I wonder if you ever think about how much stress you've caused us. Don't bother us anymore." Hearing my resistance must have really infuriated Shannon. She was screaming so loudly over the phone, it was hard to understand what she was saying. It made me worry if she was taking her anger too far. "I can't believe this! How dare you talk back to me like that? Greg, you too! How dare you defy your older sister, even though you're just Veronica's little brother?" It seemed Shannon had traveled all the way to Boston suburbs just to take revenge on us. But she didn't know where we lived. "Hey, tell me where you live!" There's no way I'd comply with such a demand. I naturally refused. Then Shannon screamed again. It was almost funny. She was like a machine programmed to scream every time I defied her. "Enough is enough! I'm Greg's mother. Since when is it okay for a child and his wife to defy their parents?" She was pulling some pretty old-fashioned cards. I mean, there are countless ways to find out where someone lives. Given she hasn't thought to look it up, I doubt she'd ever manage to reach our home. "Give me your address! Neither of you is getting off easy!" "Wait, what?" Suddenly, Shannon's tone changed. I wondered what had happened when she started screaming. "This is all your fault!" Turns out, Veronica had been taken away by the police, aggressively demanding a man leave his home, and he finally had enough and called the police. Well, that figures. Unable to think rationally, believing that blackmail could solve her problems, she must have gotten it from her mother. Getting taken away by the police might cool her off a bit. "How dare you do this to my precious Veronica?" Once again, she's deflecting the blame. I mean, how can it be anyone's fault but Veronica's, who was causing a scene outside someone else's house? Just then, Greg got home from work. I informed him that I was on the phone with Shannon, and he took over the call. "Mom, I've lived my whole life in fear of you, but that's over now. I'm not listening to you anymore. If you come to our house uninvited, I'll call the police." It seems Greg has grown through this experience. To think he could say that much to Shannon, who had tormented him all this time. Greg gave the phone back to me, saying he had said all he needed to say. Shannon, on the other end, screamed again. She's clearly not used to getting pushed back. Doesn't she realize that doing awful things could result in some form of retaliation? "Shannon, just give it up. Veronica has been taken away, and anything you do to me is just going to be petty revenge." Even so, Shannon just kept screaming. She was like a wild animal, so lost in her anger she had forgotten what she was even mad about. This is getting nowhere. Shannon, can I hang up now? I don't think there's any point in continuing this conversation." But she just wouldn't listen. "Don't you dare argue with me! Parents are absolute! A child should never defy their parents!" If she's going to be this unreasonable, well, I've got my own thoughts on the matter too. Shannon, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're done interacting with you. Stop contacting us. I deliberately kept pushing Shannon's buttons. As expected, Shannon flew off the handle and started cursing at me. The things she said were so awful, they could break someone's spirit if taken to heart. But that's precisely what I was aiming for. "Shannon, I've recorded every single abusive word you've just said." As I said this, Shannon stopped her tirade and began to panic. "Recorded? What are you doing?" "Shannon, you're the one in the wrong for using hate speech. Slander is a serious offense. I'm sure my lawyer would love to hear this, and you'll probably end up having to pay a fine or compensation." At that point, Shannon broke down in tears and apologized. "I'm sorry. I just lost my cool for a moment. Please don't involve the lawyers or police, okay?" Since Shannon kept apologizing persistently, I told her to never interfere with Greg and me again and decided to forgive her. Shannon promised, and we never heard from her again. The truth is, I hadn't actually recorded anything. It was all a tactic to make Shannon back off. She didn't even know how to find our address, so I thought she might fall for a simple trick like this. And she did. Finally, peace returned to Greg's and my life. I heard that after being taken by the police, Veronica had to pay damages to the tenants. Having lost their home, Veronica and her husband Ricky moved in with Shannon. But within a few days, Ricky was talking about divorce, and it seemed Veronica was going to be divorced. To top it all off, Shannon had been hurling insults at Veronica's Ricky too. And I heard she also ended up having to pay damages for her insults. Both Shannon and Veronica ran out of money, and what used to be a friendship turned into mutual loathing. The atmosphere in their home is reportedly constantly tense now. Well, they brought it upon themselves. I hope they come to accept the circumstances and move on. As for Greg, he completed his assignment and returned to the main office, only to be assigned to another distant location a few months later. We realized it's more convenient for us both to relocate together, given how our lives have become increasingly busy with transfers. Now, wherever we go, people say we're a great couple, not just at the company, but also among the locals in the places we move to. After overcoming challenges without giving in to Shannon and Veronica, we realized that we'll be fine wherever we go. We look forward to supporting each other as we move forward in life.